channel again for our second video of AWS Solutions Architect training series. So after understanding about benefits of cloud computing and different types of deployment models on cloud, on-premise and hybrid, we are going to understand how does AWS provide all these benefits. That is AWS's infrastructure setup. But before we dive into the second chapter of the Solutions Architect training series, I'm trying to understand a very basic concept of cloud. So imagine you are vacationing and you have clicked few hundreds and thousands of photos for your memories. And when you are enjoying some breathtaking views of a crystal clear lake or a river, you happen to drop your phone in there, and all your photos will be gone if you did not back up your photos in cloud. This is where cloud services come to the rescue. Cloud provides a secure and a reliable way to store your data and access it from anywhere at any time. It also eliminates the risk of losing important files due to hardware failures or accidents, which is we just saw. Now, let's start the second chapter in this series, which is AWS Global Infrastructure. As you can see in the screen, it starts with a video, which I'm not going to play here, but we can dive right into the concepts. So, for the ease of deploying the code base from its customers, enterprises, all the applications, AWS has divided the geography, the entire world, into several regions. So, regions is a geographic location where AWS hosts its data centers. For example, in the US, we have regions in North Virginia, we have regions in on the West Coast, and we have regions in like Asia Pacific, Europe, and all other places. So whenever AWS starts a region, it codenames that region based on its geographic location and what is the region in that. What is the number of that region in that location? So, for example, the first region in the northeastern US area was named as US East 1. Then first region that was created in the Northeast Asia Pacific area that was called AP Northeast 1. And geographical name of that region is Tokyo. So the reason AWS has divided this infrastructure is to give its customers ability to choose where they want to deploy their application. For example, there's a there's a startup which has built an app that caters only to the Japanese customers. So that company will deploy its app in the AP Northeast 1 region because it doesn't expect any of its customers to access the app from any other parts of the world. So it becomes easier for that customer's experience as well because deploying the app into the closest location of the users reduces the latency. As we discussed, latency is one of the benefits of deploying in the cloud. And similarly, if there's an enterprise which has its customer base in the US, it will deploy that app in the regions that are located geographically in the US. So that makes up the AWS regions. And if you talk about how region is built up, region is made up of several availability zones. So what is an availability zone? Availability zone is a is a set of several data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity. So if I go down the screen, so this is what we talked about: regions, US East 1, AP Northeast 1, and all those. Then why a customer will select one of the regions, and there are four factors for selecting a region, like latency that we talked about, pricing. For example, hosting a data center, managing and operating a data center in India versus managing a data center in the US can have different prices based on real estate, based on the employee personnel salaries that are managing the data center, based on the import export duties that are levied when importing the racks and the servers and whatnot. Then service availability is another factor which is which should be determined on how to select a region. And service availability implies that there are some AWS services which are not available in all of the regions. So if a particular service is required by one of the customers of AWS and that service is not available in, let's say, Tokyo, then it will have to deploy that application in another region which has that service. And then the data compliance. So every country and every geography has its own compliance regulations, which picture into how to select a region to deploy the applications and systems. So we are talking about the availability zones, or in short, we can call it AZ. So what is availability zone? Availability zone is, let's say, it's a set of data centers which with the redundant power, redundant networking, and connectivity. And by the name of redundant or redundancy, what we're trying to imply here is, let's say there's a customer that has the app that caters only to Japanese customers. So that that startup deployed its app in AP Northeast 1 region. And within that region, there are, let's say, four or five AZs, availability zones. So what the function of AZ is to have a backup of each other. let's say that enterprise deploys its app in only one AC in AP Northeast one region, and for some unknown reasons, like there's a natural calamity like or flood, or there's an earthquake in Japan, or there's a power gone, and there's no power backup in that region, or the power backup takes about a few minutes to start the region or start the data center again. Then for that time period, that startups customers will not be able to access the website if that startup has deployed the website only in one AZ. But since a region has a couple of at least couple of AZs, then the company or the startup can select to deploy its application or the website in those two regions, those two AZs. And that is where the word redundant comes into play. So redundancy implies that even if one AZ is down for one of the reasons that we saw, then the website should be able to be accessed from the other AZ. So that's what this screen says. Inside every region is a cluster of AZs. An AZ consists of one or more data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity. They are connected using redundant high-speed and low latency links. And see, this is what I was talking about. There's one region, and one region will have at least two AZs, and each AZ will have one or more data centers. And then we talk about scope of AWS services, maintaining resiliency, and there are a couple of paragraphs which let's see what this paragraph says. Oh, yeah, so this is, I think this is what was the fourth, no, this was the third factor on selecting a region, which says scope of AWS services. There are some services which are not available everywhere and every region or every AZ. So depending on the AWS service that you choose, your resources are either spread at the AZ, region, or global level. And AWS, by AWS service, we mean there are, I think, more than 200 AWS services. EC2 is one of them. Then we have S3 for storage. We have EBS, Elastic Block Storage, that is also part of EC2, and several others. So when you operate a region scoped service, you only need to select the region that you want to use. That means there are a couple of applications or a couple of websites which are not accessed from any other part of the geographic location that you have already deployed the application in. Then you're only operating a region scope service, and you only need to select the region that you want to use. You don't need any other thing or any other AZ or any other region. So this is what this paragraph is saying. Resiliency. So maintaining resiliency is another main function of deploying the application in cloud, which says to keep your application available, you must maintain high availability and resiliency. So that means when you're deploying your website or an application in two AZs, and one AZ is down for any known or unknown reasons, then your application can be accessed from the other AZ. And that is what it implies here, that you must maintain high availability and high resiliency. A well-known practice for cloud architecture is to use region-scoped managed services. That is, choose your services which are available in one AZ that you need or one region that you need, and then within that region, select at least two AZs that provides you high availability and high resiliency. That is what is said in the sentence. When that is not possible, make sure your workload is replicated across multiple AZs. That is, you need to replicate across multiple AZs. At a minimum, you should choose two AZ. That way, if an AZ fails, your application will have infrastructure up and running in a second AZ to take over the traffic. All right. Next up in the AWS infrastructure setup is edge location. So edge location is the purpose of edge location is to provide or is to store the content closest to the end user. So in the first example that we were seeing, that there's a Japanese startup which has deployed its application or the website in AP Northeast one region, because it expects its customers will only access the website from AP Northeast one region. But down the line, that website gets popular, and there are several customers who are trying to access that website, and those are customers located geographically in the US. And since those customers will, that application is currently deployed only in AP Northeast one region, and customers who are trying to access from the US will have experienced a higher latency than the customers who are accessing the website in the those are geographically located in the Japan. So the customer experience of the US customers is worse than the experience of the Japanese customers. So what we can do here is, if there's a if that location doesn't have a region, but it might have a edge location. So edge location will be located closer to the end users. so that whenever a user is accessing the application or the website, and if there's an edge location, then that content is being transferred or traveled from that edge location to the customer, and instead of traveling all the way from Japan to the US. So let's say there is a Netflix has deployed all its applications and all the content in several hundreds of edge locations across the world. And so the purpose of this edge location is, if there's a customer who is trying to access Netflix series or a movie sitting in Australia, then that content is being traveled from Australia to Australia, from Australian edge location to the end user in Australia, instead of traveling the data all the way from US to Australia where Netflix has its main servers. But since Netflix used edge locations, so the content is being traveled from Australia to Australia. And one of the services which is mentioned in this screen is Amazon CloudFront, which delivers your content through a worldwide network of edge locations. When a user requests content that is being served with CloudFront, the request is routed to the location that provides the lowest latency. That is, if there's a customer who is accessing the content from Australia, then that content is being traveled from Australia to the Australia to deliver the best possible performance. It says CloudFront speeds up the distribution of your content by routing each user request through the AWS backbone network to the edge location that can best serve your content. So edge location is, let's say there's a customer, this symbol is a customer, edge location is this person, and the content is stored here. So content is here. So this content is not being traveled from this part of the world to Australia, but it is being traveled from this part of the world, like Australia to Australia, because this content has been replicated in each of these edge locations. As you can see, this is the main content storage location, and these smaller icons are the copies or the replication of that same content. So if a customer is accessing that content, let's say from South America, then South America has their edge location here, which has the replication of this content, and the possible uh, travel data. Possible data is traveling from South America to South America instead of traveling all the way from, this is Europe to South America. All right. So what we can see is, if you are a startup or you're a multinational corporation, organizations of all these sizes and industries are leveraging AWS to innovate, scale, and stay ahead in deploying the infrastructure, deploying the applications and the websites that can better the end user's customer experience. So the flexibility and scalability of AWS empower businesses to adapt to changing demands and grow rapidly. That is what this solutions architect teaches us. And let's meet on the next video where we discuss the third chapter of this series.